Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo walnut ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling, and man, we actually have a pretty newsworthy show this week. A lot's happened in the world of TNA wrestling. A lot's happening in the world of Anthem, sports and entertainment, and some surprising news, some really good. Like I would say, like this is a good week for like TNA fans and TNA wrestling, like people kind of in that sphere. Because of the signing of Alexander Hammerstone, and it just looks like a lot of the chaos has kind of subsided. Josh Alexander kind of they were able to trot out Alexander onto a bunch of different podcasts this week, and he was kind of like cooling off on some of the chaos that we were all talking about the last couple of weeks with Scott D'Amore getting fired. But I would say since Scott D'Amore has been fired, I would say this has been kind of like the most positive week, I would say, in TNA since that moment happened, because before that, like everybody's like leaking all kinds of stuff. People looking like people wanting to get out of their deal. The Hourglass situation happens. Josh gets extended, but he had asked out of his deal. He was able to clarify that. Maclin's contract's coming up, and like just all kinds of like stuff that you don't really want to, like if you're a TNA fan and if you're a part of that company, like stuff that you don't want to have to deal with. But whatever they did last week with their big rah speech that they did before the impact tapings, it seems to have worked because a lot of that stuff has kind of cooled off. So that's the really good news. So I want to get started. I think the biggest topic that I want to talk about is because this has been something that I've been wanting for a long time, and this is my happiest. This is probably the happiest that TNA has made me in a little while. Alexander Hammerstone. Actually, they're just calling him Hammerstone, and I think that's a smart idea. Hammerstone has signed a contract with TNA Wrestling. It is a lengthy deal, which they don't really never put qualifiers on how long their deals are for, but they said a lengthy deal, so I would assume he's in for like at least 2 or 3 years. And that's a big signing. And I think that a signing like this, and then them extending Josh, picking up his option, and then and I'll talk about it in a little bit, but they're trying to work a new deal with Josh, kind of puts a little bit of cold water on all the budget cut talk that we had heard about. Now, when like Dave Meltzer and Mike Johnson and I know Joe Lanza and a lot of the folks, when they were talking about this budget cut stuff, this was coming from like the TNA people. So I don't think that was coming from Anthem. I think that was probably their assumption of what was going to happen given the new president, Chon. Given his history, I think that's what they thought. But so far, we have not seen any evidence that is the case. And so that's going to be something to continue to monitor. I think maybe a lot of the people that were leaking that to the press didn't really know and were jumping the gun a little bit. Because if anything, we have seen the opposite be true. And so I think that's good news if you're a TNA fan, because it was a miserable, I would say, miserable month for like fandom. It was like a good month for podcasters. Like our numbers are doing pretty good, so that was cool. But because chaos helps out with podcasting numbers and stuff like that. But I would say, like, yeah, it was like a miserable time since those Orlando or the Kissimmee, Florida tapings. But things are starting to turn around, and I would say since D'Amore has been fired, this has been the best news that we've had. Hammerstone's a star, man. He really freaking is. He looks great. He could work. He's probably not like the greatest promo guy, but I think he could promo. Like his promos are good enough, right? I think that he can get the job done. And I am really surprised that WWE and AEW passed on this guy, because I think that he would have fit in both promotions. Now, given his physique, he probably would have lost some weight had he went over to WWE. And now I know what people are saying, like their guys are on steroids too. Yeah, but their guys are like on the expensive kind, right? like I'm pretty sure, like Hammerstone's not like a millionaire, right? Like he can't afford the AJ Styles, what AJ is on. He can't afford what Randy Orton's on. Like he's not going to like an anti-aging clinic to look like this. Like he's doing it old school bodybuilder way, with help from friends in the gym, and getting these like secret packages mailed to a PO box. Like so 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 that might have been a little bit of tough on him, but I think that he could have thrived there too, even had he lost like 30 pounds. Because he's like 265 pounds. Like he's a big jacked up dude, and he's fantastic. And my God, can the guy work? We saw him wrestle Josh Alexander, and I think people were surprised as to how good that match was. I wasn't surprised because every time I saw him in MLW, and him and Fatu were like my main two reasons that I ever would watch MLW. Every time I saw him there, I just thought he was tremendous. I was like, this guy's got the look, he's got the body, he can work. He just comes across like a star. He's got a star aura. I think Hammerstone's going to be a top guy in this promotion for a long time. You've now just signed one of your cornerstones, like one of your pillars for the company. And that's all. And now that they got him around for a while, like he's really a guy that I think that they can get behind. I think he's a guy that like day one, like he has to be pushed day one. No waiting around, no building him up from the bottom. Like he's a big star. Sorry, hold on. He's gonna be immediately a big star for the company. So I don't think that you wait. And now we do know that he will be wrestling Josh Alexander coming up at Sacrifice. And like I know that it's in Windsor, Ontario. I know that's where Josh lives, right? Josh runs the Demore like wrestling school there. So I think that people would think that maybe Josh Alexander would win this match. Also because it appears like they're trying to get behind Josh again, and get him towards a title shot with Moose or Nick Nemeth, whoever wins at Rebellion. Look, I know it hasn't been announced that it's Nick Nemeth, but the fact that he's like the main guy on the poster, he's like they're promoting the show around him. Let's go ahead and be honest with each other. that it's very likely Nick Nemeth. Okay. So I think for me, Hammerstone has to win here. I really do. And here's how I would do it. Now I know I book shit all the time and it never happens, but it's my podcast, so I get to do this. So but in my head, how we get Hammerstone over, he has to beat Josh. I think he wins with help from the system. I think the system needs Hammerstone. And I think that would make this, faction like a formidable faction. And then you immediately start telling the story of Hammerstone turning babyface, like the Triple H and Batista, from Evolution. Like, they started getting behind like a slow build to get behind Batista to take over, to turn on Triple H. I think that's what you do. Or, similarly, I think, Ole Anderson booked it, rest in peace, Ole. They put Sting in the Four Horsemen, and the whole reason they put Sting in the Four Horsemen was for him to, that was when the Horsemen were babyface, by the way. So they put Sting in the Four Horsemen, and slowly, he wins a title shot, and the Horsemen turn on Sting, and they have a big feud between Sting and Ric Flair that culminates a Great American Bash 90. And it was very similar to what happened at Evolution, right? When Dave Batista won the Royal Rumble, got the title match against Triple H, and they told him not to take it, and then of course he took it. And next thing you know, we got Triple H versus Batista at WrestleMania, and that was a huge match. I think something similar can happen here, with Moose and Hammerstone. I think you put them in the same faction, you put them in the system. You immediately put them in with your top people. You keep them strong. You don't let anybody beat them. And then he wins the Call Your Shot Gauntlet at Bound for Glory. And then he calls a shot in next year's Hard to Kill against Moose, or against, maybe there's like a different champion, right? Like maybe, you could do whatever you want. I don't know if they want to keep the belt on Moose for that long, because I do think they probably want to transition over to Nick Nemeth at some point, because he appears to be like their top star, at least based off of the marketing. Like that's who they seem to be getting behind. So, but that is one way that you could do it. That's how I would book it. I know it's not very original because Evolution and the Four Horsemen already did it, but you can do it in a different way. Like, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but that's what I would do, because I think you put Hammerstone and Moose on like a poster or like on a billboard, in Las Vegas at the Palms. I think people would be automatically interested in that, and then they get to the match, and I bet that match would be pretty fucking good. I do. Like, Moose is great. I know Moose has a lot of haters. I think he's great. He's not your typical modern, slap the thigh, kick out of everything, do all the crazy moves. Like, you're not going to get that out of him. He's more of a traditional heavyweight. He's more of a traditional heavyweight wrestler. Very much a WWE style wrestler, but I think he does a lot of big moves too. So, I think that would be awesome for TNA if they built to a Moose and Hammerstone match. Now, people are going to say, well, what about Josh? And I think that they could get to. I think that Josh and Moose at Bound for Glory, or Josh and Nick Nemeth at Bound for Glory, would be a way to go, or something like that. I think they're going to want to get to that. But look, we got to face facts. Josh asked them not to extend his deal, and they did. And he stated, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but he basically stated, actually, we'll just get into that now. So, Hammerstone, big pickup. I love the signing. I think it's a home run signing. I think that they probably got a little bit lucky that AEW is so stacked right now and WWE is so stacked right now that they probably didn't need to add this guy. Because if they did add him, he would probably have to be at the bottom of the card, and that's just not somebody that you want at the bottom of your card. Like, he is a guy that you want in that upper tier echelon of your promotion, just based off of his look and his work ability and everything. He just isn't a big star yet. And so they probably didn't want to bring him in at that level. But TNA can bring him in and put him right at the top. There's room at the top of the promotion. They need, more main eventers. They need guys that look great on posters, that can work, that'll sell tickets. And I think Hammerstone's like one of those guys. I really do think he is. If they put their marketing machine behind Hammerstone, he is a guy that is going to do very well in this company. So I would say that's a home run pickup. Now, transitioning over to Josh Alexander, he was on the Battleground podcast, and he was on PW Insider's podcast, and he had some very interesting comments, and I'll just paraphrase. I'm not going to read verbatim, but in regards to his contract, he said at no point was there ever any kind of contentious issue between him and Anthem. He's a Scott D'Amore guy, but Scott, he became a Scott D'Amore guy after he signed. He didn't really know Scott D'Amore before he signed, but then they grew to be very close after he was signed to the company, and that he asked him not to pick up his option because he felt like he had outworked his contract, and that he wanted to have a new deal. And it wasn't that he wanted to go somewhere else. It was that he wanted a new deal with TNA, or he wanted the opportunity to test free agency on the open market. And I get that, and I understand that. So he kind of threw some cold water on all the hostage talk, which I was a part of, but he brought that on himself whenever he decided to take to Twitter and do the hourglass thing. And then his wife quote tweeting the mistake that TNA made, quote tweeting it, saying he did not resign, he was extended. And that was just a graphics department screw up, because in the press release, it very much stated that they picked up his third year player or team option. So it looked to me like it was a contentious thing. So that's on him for his lack of communication. And then if you go back to the day that it was announced, he doesn't interact with that post at all. He doesn't say, quote tweeted, I'm excited for one more year in TNA. Let's get after it. He didn't say any of that stuff. He waited a week to talk about it. So that behavior tells me that he was not happy. That could be me reading into it. And he has come out and he went on to the typical podcast and said, I was totally fine. This was not an issue. Okay, but your behavior tells me otherwise, right? He didn't get out in front of the story, and in fact, he putting that hourglass thing and getting that started sent signals to everybody that he wasn't happy, and that's on him. That's his fault. That's not the fault of the people reading into that. That is his fault for creating that situation. He needs to do better with the social media if he's not going to start causing controversy. Because last week we thought this company was in chaos, and that's because of him. That's his fault. He instead of tweeting an hourglass emoji, he could have been like, he's like, hey, look, I'm so excited, for 12 more months of TNA. Let's get after it. You know what I mean? And then hopefully we can work out a new deal within the next year. I mean, he said something like that in the SI story, but it kind of like the way it read was very much like through a publicist, because that's what SI kind of is right now. Like Justin Barrasso doesn't really do any hard hitting stories, because when he does, he fucks them up. So he basically does PR for the companies now, for all of them, not just this specific company. If you need to get a story out there, like a contract signing or something like that, like he's probably the guy to go to. Because despite the fact that they shit canned half their operations, Sports Illustrated still is kind of a household name. So when you can get your company into Sports Illustrated, people see that as a big deal. So they put out that press release through Sports Illustrated, and it very much looked like it was a filtered interview, right? Like Ross Foreman and and Anthony Chon were like right there watching over Josh as he's speaking to Justin Barrasso, or like they read it beforehand, you know what I mean? But he didn't say those things himself, like on his own. So it was good that he actually got out onto the podcast and kind of threw some cold water on the whole deal, because, we were being led to believe that this company was in complete chaos. And again, that's on him. That's his fault. Like, he should be a better leader than that. And he is very much a leader in this promo. I know he's a contracted talent, but he very much, like, when people think of TNA wrestling, they think of him right now. And so when it looked like he was unhappy, that made the company look bad. So he's got to fix that. But so, yeah, but he's in for the next 12 months. You know what? Given what we know now, given what we have been seeing lately, he also stated that Anthem has already come to him about, negotiating a new contract. And so I would assume that those negotiations are ongoing. It would be smart of him to test free agency, but he could probably take a temperature of free agency long before his contract expires. He probably could. And I think the safe place for him to be is probably right here. Now, I would not have said that like a month ago whenever Scott D'Amore got fired. But I think this company looks at him as he's far more important to this company than he would be to any other company. I think that he would have to kind of start his way from the bottom if he goes to either WWE or AEW. I think that if he went to New Japan, there's not a lot of money in New Japan right now. New Japan's struggling. But if he did go, I think that he would kind of start off like in the upper middle and then probably work his way, because he's that good. He can hang with all those guys over there. He's that good. I think he'd be like upper middle, and then he'd become one of their top foreigners. So that, like, if he left TNA, I could see him going there, because if he goes to AEW, I think that, he would have great matches and he would have some great feuds. And he'd probably make some really good money. And I think that would be a good place for him, but I just don't think that he would just be like another guy on the show. All right, look what happened to. There's been a lot of people that have left TNA and have gone up there that were top guys in TNA, and they're kind of afterthoughts in that promotion now. So he doesn't have the charisma to be as important in AEW and WWE as you would need to have. Right? He doesn't have that. But he is an amazing professional wrestler, and he can cut promos. Like, and just because when I mean charisma, like, he doesn't have like over the top megastar charisma, right? Like Will Ospreay does, So like Will Ospreay signing with AEW, like he's like a day one top guy. Josh Alexander wouldn't be. Josh Alexander would be like TNT championship, kind of like in that tier, and then. If something sparks and he catches fire with their audience, then maybe he could. like get to a certain level. Like you see him like challenging for titles, but I just don't think you probably wouldn't. Like Andrade was there for like I think like 2 or 3 years, and he only had one singles pay-per-view match. Like I think that's kind of where we would see him, like like a really good fucking wrestler on the card, can have a great match with anybody if you need him to. But if TNA can match the money offer that an AEW would match, then I would say probably stick with TNA. If in 12 months, the landscape in TNA has gotten to where you trust the president. And I think that's like one of the big problems is they just fired Scott D'Amore, like your most trusted agent. And when it seemed like things were getting better in TNA, they fired the president, and now you have to kind of like learn to trust these people. And now he has 12 months to do that. So I think this is a win-win for everybody, right? They extended his contract, or they picked up his contract for another year, and that gives them 12 months to learn to trust each other before they sign a new deal. And my prediction is I think that they will. I do. I think that they will. I think Josh Alexander, obviously he wants to make more money, and I think they'll probably pay him more money. If the company keeps on the same trajectory that we're seeing currently, it could always change. But I also think that he likes to be like a top guy, and he could be that here, right? So, but yeah, so that's the Josh Alexander news. So now this is a very interesting story that has kind of come out this week. Dave Meltzer early in the week was talking about TNA wanting to go live every single Thursday from Full Sail University, and that just seems that seems bonkers to me. And so originally when he said it, it was so here, look, I'll just actually read it from. I actually have it up here on the Observer. So he said in the TNA section, he said there's a major goal of moving the TV to live, where they would shoot every week at the same location. Ed Nordholm, Scott D'Amore, and Lou D'Angeli had made a connection with Full Sail University in Orlando, which is where TNA or NXT used to tape. They had recently toured the campus, and after D'Amore was let go, Nordholm was removed from the picture. Leonard Asper and other execs were also interested and were said to have toured Full Sail. So that was the clarification that I was looking for whenever I recorded the Mike and JD show on Thursday night. Because at that point, all we knew was that was like a Scott D'Amore idea. And so I didn't know if Anthem was still interested in that. But this tells me that they're still interested in recording from or going live from Full Sail. He goes on to say, the original plan was for a test weekend of tape shows at the new location, whether Full Sail or somewhere else, in May or June, with the idea of starting up going live each week in late 2024 or early 2025. Now, the 2025 date seems to be the sticking one. I know Joel Pearl said it on the Fightful Discord. Live in 25 was kind of something that people were talking about in Vegas, like as the next step for TNA. I said Anthem was also interested in taping from Santino Morella's gym. So that's where they taped in November and December. That's where they did the Final Resolution show. And I'll be honest, like I wouldn't be interested if they went there every week. I don't think that would be a good idea. And it turns out they agree with me. So they're also interested in taping from Santino Morella's gym in Mississauga, Ontario, but the look wouldn't be as good as Full Sail. That is true. Where WWE taped NXT for years. Another person said they heard Morella's gym was less likely and maybe crossed off the list because it's a functioning MMA and wrestling gym, and that could impact the gym's primary business too much, having weekly live television. Of course, Orlando would be a difficult market to sell tickets. And I think Dave is assuming that they would try to sell tickets every week. I don't think that they would. I think that if they went to Full Sail, this would be much like NXT, free to get into. So NXT was able to sell tickets and let students in for free at Full Sail, but that's WWE. TNA wouldn't be able to sell many tickets that are given NXT as free and in the area every Tuesday. And you don't know how many students and friends they could get for a TNA product running every single week. Right. So if they did go and they went live every week, and I'm going to talk about my opinion about that, I think the move is people get in for free. But there are advantages of Full Sail in the sense that the look is very TV friendly, and they can work the deal where students help out on production, which I think is a knowing what they like to spend on production. I think that is a win for TNA. Demora's goal was some live TV shoots this year and every week live in 2025. So that's the story right there for TNA live in 25. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea at all. In fact, I think that's one way to find themselves going out of business or actually ending up selling the company, unless of course they have a media rights deal for a not a major network but a bigger network than what they're on right now. So if that's in their back pocket, then that's a good idea. But if they're just going to run live on Access every week, I don't think that's smart. I just don't see the money in it. You're essentially doubling or even tripling, depending on the month, your production costs, because right now talent they get paid per date. Like I know some of them are on like upwards of 5-year deals, but they have certain dates markers they have to hit, and they have like an average money they make per date. So so when you do that, now you're compound, like you're adding more dates to the calendar, which means like you have to pay these people more. So when they go to a TNA taping right now, it's like essentially like a 2-for-1 deal, right? Like you're getting them for one night, but there's 2 tapings. So you only pay them once, right? They only get paid per that date. Now, if you go live every single week, right? So now each episode, you have to pay them their same rate, right? So now you've essentially doubled the cost. And so, and then also there are production costs associated with going live that are more expensive than if they were to go tape. I just don't think that's a smart move. I think that that's one way to find themselves out of business in a hurry. That's one way to tank the company. And it's not wise. I would advise against it, unless of course they're going to be getting paid extra for it. What I would do, and this is something that we've been talking about here on BFI for a long time, and what I know BQ has also brought it up on his podcast. I think you tour monthly, right, for the big shows, Impact Plus and the pay-per-views, and my opinion is you go into that market like Saturday, like once a month on Saturday nights, like once a month on Saturday night, like that's like your big night. And you do it on a night, obviously, the WWE or AEW is not running. And you do like the big Saturday night show, but only once, right? And you can book a bigger arena, like maybe like 15 to 20% bigger than what normal, or you can open up those arenas that you're booking. You can open them up a little bit more and just try to fit as many people as you can in one night, as opposed to running 2 nights in a row in that same town, because that's overwhelming. And it's a difficult ask for people to go 2 nights in a row. So you just go one night, right? So say like a Lario Center, instead of doing Friday and Saturday night, you just do Saturday night, and you just try to get as many people as you can in there. And then the fall, so you do that on Saturday night, you go live for TNA Plus, or you go live for pay-per-view. And then following Thursday, you go right back to Full Sail. You do a live episode on Thursday night, immediately followed by a taped episode. And then you do Friday night. And then boom, you got a month block of tapings with one live episode a month. I think that's the smart play. And I think that that's your routine. The TNA Impact show is taped from Full Sail, but your TNA Plus and your TNA pay-per-views are, monthly at different locations. I think that's the smart move, and would be a good way to balance. Like you can still advertise that you're going live, just not going live every single week, because it makes no difference to go live every single week unless you're on a sports channel and they're paying you a lot of money. But I don't think that's smart. But again, look, I talked about it whenever we talked about Hammerstone signing. Them even being interested in this really throws cold water on the budget cut talks. It really does. We have not seen any evidence that budget cuts are happening. We just haven't. In fact, we've only seen the opposite. So whoever it was from on the TNA side, probably, Tommy Dreamer and, Mike Johnson seemed to be pretty close. Whoever it was on the TNA side that's saying all this stuff, they might have jumped the gun on that deal, because it looks like Anthem might actually be getting behind this product. And that's surprising given what we were all led to believe when Scott D'Amore was fired. Dave goes on to state that to say Hard to Kill was after the success at the Palms in Las Vegas for Hard to Kill, the idea of running all 4 major pay-per-views from that building, they had an idea to just do all of them from the Palms. But that looks to have been changed with the realization that running that big of a building and having to sell tickets for 8 shows a year. Yeah. I actually don't hate that idea. Like, do all their, run monthly at the Palms, and then like for your live big shows, and then just immediately go back to Orlando. Then you just have like 2 locations. Like, I don't think that would be too crazy, but you would have to have like a good deal from the Palms, and apparently like the Palms and TNA have like some related because they're going right back in April. But it looks like they were thinking about doing it, but probably not a good idea. Now, again, if they just ran one Saturday a month at the Palms, and then went right back to Orlando, Thursday, Friday, once a month, I think that could be doable. Because like even if like the Palms is a hot place to be, right? You're gonna be able to get a lot more people in the Palms than you can just about anywhere else. For a company like TNA at their level, they could probably get more people in the Palms than they could anywhere else, and it's a more affordable location than say like running the MGM Grand. Like there are bigger arenas that they can run in the States, but they just can't get that many people because, a lot of time, like when they were at the Hilario Center, they said it was New Orleans. That's not New Orleans. It's like 30 minutes away, right? It's not New Orleans proper. And so you're not getting a lot of, you're asking people that live in the New Orleans area to drive like 30 minutes away to go to some shithole town, in like an old building to go to a show. But in Las Vegas, the Palms, it's like right there in the heart of the city. And it's a fun place to be. Like the Palms is a hot casino. At least it was last time I was in the area. It's a popular destination. People like to go hang out there. So even if you're not selling tickets ahead of time, there's going to be enough people in that vicinity that if you just do your advertising properly with the billboards and the big sign outside of the Palms, then I think you're good to go. But yeah, they look like they were thinking about doing all their pay-per-views from the Palms, but they squashed that idea. I still think the Hammerstein Ballroom is on the table, and I would predict that Slammiversary or Bound for Glory would be there, and I think that would be smart. He goes on to say Hard to Kill. Now this is amazing, by the way. To say Hard to Kill was an overwhelming success would be an understatement. It ended up doing 19,700 buys on television pay-per-view. So he got all the numbers in, more than a month later, he finally got all the television buys in. That's more than double their prior pay-per-view, Bound for Glory, which did under 6,900 on television, and that was considered huge. The show ended up doing more than even the Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann champion versus champion show. And if you factor in streaming buys, this should end up around 60,000 pay-per-view buys, which would be the same as Samoa Joe versus Kurt Angle record that was set at TNA Genesis in 2006. That's fucking incredible. What an overwhelming, smashing success this was. I'm dumbfounded because that's 60,000 people bought Hard to Kill. Like they only had 85,000 people watching the show on Access this week, but they were able to get 60,000 people to buy that show. And I think part of it is the name change. I would say that's the most of it. There wasn't really a build for the pay-per-view. The build stunk. They didn't do TV for 2 months. So it was all like the TNA name, the rebrand, the excitement around a new person coming in, which we all kind of figured was Nick Nemeth. So kudos to Nick Nemeth. And not only, I think the appeal of them kind of like running at the Palms in Las Vegas, because that's kind of like a big deal. In some circles, that's like a big deal. It's like, oh wow, they're in this really nice place. They're not in like a shithole like in Kissimmee, Florida, or the Hilario Center in Oswego, Louisiana. He goes on to say, in one rural-based company, TNA actually beat AEW World's End. So this is in one location. They actually, in that specific location, he doesn't say which location, TNA outsold AEW's World's End. And AEW's World's End did like what, 130,000, something like that. The idea they did this off of Access is absolutely mind-blowing. What's even more mind-blowing is they weren't like, yeah, you're saying they're doing this off of Access, but they didn't have a show for like 2 months. They didn't have new episodes in November and December. It's insane. Obviously, the curiosity about the return of TNA name was a key part of the draw, but the fact that this hasn't led to follow-up ticket sales picking up and ratings for the show have been out of the top 150 most weeks of late. That's Access, right? It's Access TV. Yeah, it's not leading to a boom because Access TV is now in far less homes than they were before the rebrand happened. They were still in the top 150 this week. I think they had 85. I think they said 85,000. The numbers are so small. I just kind of quit covering it because we don't really get numbers every week anymore. So yeah, they're just in a significant amount, like less homes than they were beforehand. So a lot of this, what they're doing is their social media marketing has gotten better, and they're leveraging their YouTube channel much better. Yeah, nobody watches the show on Access because people just don't like. I personally, I don't even have cable anymore, so I'm part of that. I'm not watching it on Access anymore. But they immediately put all the best stuff on their YouTube channel, and their YouTube channel gets a lot of plays, right? I think more people, significantly more people, will watch like certain matches on YouTube versus actually going to watch it on Access, because that's how people are consuming their content right now. And it's going to continue to be that way as long as they're on Access TV, and that looks like it's not changing anytime soon. So just tremendous news, tremendous success, TNA. So kudos to them for that. I mean, it's just a complete home run. They couldn't have asked for a better pay-per-view number than that. Totally just blew everything out of the water. It's now up there with Samoa Joe versus Kurt Angle, which I'm dumb, and I don't think enough people are talking about it, because the narrative out there, and outside of like your TNA podcasters, guys like me that kind of like study what's going on in TNA, like the people that kind of watch a little bit of everything, part of their move is to kind of minimize everything that TNA does. So they're not actually talking about the 60,000 number. The number that people are tossing around is 19.5 on television. That's the number that's getting the headlines. They're not talking about the 60,000 estimated number, because typically TNA, their streaming number is triple that of the television pay-per-view number, and that's why they're doing that. So they're people just aren't talking about it. Now 6,900 for Bound for Glory. So if we do 6,900 times 3, that's 20,000. But people only want to say like, oh, they're only getting a few thousand pay-per-view buys. That's not true. Bound for Glory did probably in and around 20,000, right? And now this one just did 60. This one tripled it. It's incredible. So kudos to them. Absolutely, kudos to them. All right, now you know what? I got one more story, and then I'm going to get to the chat, and then I'm going to recap this week's Impact, which I got to say, not a bad show, but not much happened. So here's the final story before we go to the Impact recap. So I thought this was interesting because I've been talking about what's been going on in Access TV land for a while, but this dude, Andy Shuon, is tapped to lead Access TV and HDNet Movies. I'll be honest, I didn't even realize HDNet Movies was a channel still. But MTV veteran and Revolt TV alum Andy Shuon has been named president of Access TV and HDNet Movies. Shuon will oversee all aspects of Access TV and HDNet, the cable channels founded by Mark Cuban, now owned by Leonard Asper's Anthem Sports and Entertainment. So Andy Shuon is a true trailblazer in the industry. I don't know about that. And a driving force behind many definitive pop culture landmarks that have left an indelible. This sounds like it was written by AI. His reputation as legendary brand builder is well earned, and the breadth of expertise will be vital in ushering in an important era for Access TV and HDNet movies. So he co-founded Revolt Media. And then Sean Diddy Combs, independently owned music and television brand. He also served as the executive vice president and general manager of Warner Brothers Records and executive. So this is a big deal. An executive VP of head of programming production for MTV, MTV2, and VH1. And so that was the interesting part to me, because we talked about a potential Access TV rebrand, and I was thinking that they would be more in line with what like USA, TNT, FX, TBS. Like if they're trying to get themselves into more homes, like that would be the play. But hold on, swig a coffee for the working man. But it looks like by bringing a guy over from Revolt TV and MTV and Warner Brothers Records, that this is still going to be a music channel. I don't think that bodes well for increasing their visibility, because I just don't think there's a big market for more music channels. If I want to watch music videos, I just go to YouTube. I don't need to watch TV for that. There's nobody my age that has a desire to see Foghat concerts from 1967. You know what I mean? Now I love Foghat. It's one of my dad's favorite bands. But come on, let's be real. I don't think that this is going to be increasing TNA's ratings, and I don't think that this move creates synergy between Access TV and TNA, which has been kind of a disconnect. To this day, if you go to Access TV's website, you're not going to see anything about TNA, and that's a problem. It's the top show on the network, so they want to be branded as they're running in two separate circles. Thankfully, the head of Anthem Entertainment Group, Anthony Ciccione, was the president of Access TV. He's now the president of TNA. Maybe they'll have the idea is that they were going to have more of a symbiotic relationship between the two entities now that they're all under the same umbrella. But we just haven't seen that happen yet. Like the social media, like their Twitter account has been tweeting about it, but still, like they want to be promoted separately from TNA, right? They don't want to be seen as a wrestling channel. They want to be seen as a music channel. And then just how it happens on Thursday nights, they have a 3-hour block of wrestling, right? Maybe they feel like wrestling hurts the branding, but wrestling is what's driving the numbers. So they got to get real with themselves. So, and I hope that they do. Now, big rumor is that the Access TV is going to rebrand. It looks like it's going to be called Anthem TV, which I think is fine. I think that's a cool name. I'm good with that. Access TV kind of creates confusion in the marketplace because of the ticket brand. So the ticket selling brand. They're like a third-rate, like a ticket master, and they promote a lot of concerts and sporting events. So that was like this is like a big name brand, and so that's why they had marketed the channel as such, but it just hasn't worked. And so maybe now they go to Anthem TV, which is just as fine. Which no big deal there. All right. Well, wow, I did 43 minutes of just news. I haven't even gotten to the recap portion of the show. And because of that, like this recap's not going to be that long. So I thought it was a good show this week. I did, but it was just, I would say, not a newsworthy show, other than the announcement of them signing Alexander Hammerstone. Right. But I was thoroughly entertained by the show. And but the highlight of the show for me was the opening match, Steve Maclin versus Mike Bailey. And as far as I'm concerned, and I watched Dynamite, I didn't watch any WWE, but between Impact and Dynamite, the best match of the week was Steve Maclin and Mike Bailey. And yes, I'm putting it above everyone's favorite, Orange Cassidy. This is more my style. It's very hard hitting, very fast paced. I'm a big fan. Obviously, I'm a big fan of both these guys, and I'm very biased towards Maclin. But I thought this was one of Macklin's best matches in the company, and it's going to be one of those under the radar type of classics that not a lot of people are going to know about, and that's a shame. So, But yeah, Steve Maclin gets the victory here. And after the match was over, Nick Nemeth was on the big screen. He's the new NJPW Global Champion, and he made a challenge for Maclin at Sacrifice. So it looks like that's going to be one of the prime positions. Now, when the spoilers came out, I think we were all led to believe that this was going to be for the global title, but that announcement never got made. So I don't know that this is for the global title. It could be. It could end up being for the global championship. But so far right now, it's not being advertised as such. So we'll continue to monitor that situation. But Maclin claimed that Nick Nemeth ran off and that he was not there tonight. Nemeth came on screen and said the only reason he wasn't there is because he was in New Japan winning the IWGP Global Championship, and he would face Maclin at TNA Sacrifice. So I'm looking forward to that match. And they're clearly getting Nemeth set up for Moose at Rebellion, and Maclin will make him look great. And then Frankie Kazarian was seen trying to get past security. He was outside. And then he was informed by Jim Miller that Santino suspended him for the attack of a referee after the match with Eric Young. Kazarian said that Santino should think very carefully about this being the right decision, which means, yeah, bad things coming for Santino. And then we get to Jake Something. Clearly, he's being primed for a push in a future X Division title shot. They're finally getting behind this guy, despite the fact that he lost a few weeks ago to Frankie. But him defeating Laredo Kid does not tell me that he deserves an X Division title shot. So he's gonna have to win a few more matches. But I think that Mustafa Ali versus Jake Something at Rebellion is probably where we're going, and I'm cool with that. This really should have been a squash, but they actually gave Laredo Kid a lot. They like Laredo, but he just never wins. So Jake Something caught Laredo off of Hurricane Rana to the floor and picked him up into a powerbomb onto the floor after rolling through it. That was awesome, by the way. Kid managed to hit a flipping DDT on Something, but Something got it one. Something hit it into the void soon thereafter, and he got the victory. And then next we go right now the show kind of falls off a cliff a little bit. You got Khan was with Angels for the sound check. And here on the Observer said this was very bad, and very bad would be an understatement. Khan said PCO was finally dead. The lights flickered, went black and white, and PCO appeared. This was brutal, man. PCO destroyed Alan Angels, and then Khan and PCO threw punches, and the camera went off. This was just not good. Nothing about this is good, and I cannot wait for it to be over. They are actively putting out bad television on purpose. They have to know this isn't any good. They have to know, but yet they still do it. Joe Hendry and Rich Swann defeated AJ Francis and Diener. This is a good spot for Francis. He gets heat. And Joe Hendry was able to get people to chant AJ sucks, but it's basically like a comedy. Like he's kind of like a comedy guy. I think that's a good spot for him. And he very much is willing to make fun of himself. So I got no problem with AJ Francis here in this promotion. Look, he's also working MLW and NWA. So anytime anybody, when they get fired from WWE, if they get out there and hustle and work everywhere, they got my respect. So you're not going to hear me shitting on AJ Francis. Like, look, he's not going to have great matches, but he's kind of funny, entertaining on the undercard. So I'm kind of ready for this Hendry stuff to be over. It's been going on since Hard to Kill, and they still have yet to have a singles match. So hopefully that happens soon. But I still think that we're building towards the Swan turn, and we got a little bit of a tease for that at the end. So Francis hit a knee strike that appeared to not hit Hendry at all before flipping over the top rope and landing on his feet on the floor. The fans then chanted Uncle Phil. That was pretty funny. Francis missed a knee as Hendry was draped on the ropes. Francis went for a back suplex, but Hendry countered into a DDT. Swan knocked Francis to the floor, and Hendry hit a standing ovation on Diener for the win. But then afterwards, when Hendry was celebrating, Swan kind of gave him like a little bit of a look, and they didn't pick it up here on the Observer part of this recap, but kind of gave him a little bit of a look and then snapped out of it because it looked like Hendry was, kind of more into Hendry than the team. So I think something is brewing there. Something is definitely brewing. Decay cut a promo on MK Ultra. You know what? These Decay promos are not that bad. They're not using magic anymore, so I'm cool with that. They cut a promo on MK Ultra saying that they were patient and that they made a deal that it will only keep them away from the tag titles for a short time. So yeah, I think they're obviously getting another rematch. And then the big announcement that Alex Hammerstone had signed with TNA and he'd be facing Josh Alexander at TNA Sacrifice. Alexander was with Miller to talk about it, saying that it was going to be a hard match. Dango walked up and said that he was launching the Dirty Dango International Wrestling Academy of the Performing Arts for sports entertainment. So they're only accepting payments via dubious means and a 1 year less experience. He said that he was going to be an email at the bottom of the screen, which there was not. Alexander said that Dango was looking for a match, which Dango denied. And then Alexander said it was no problem. They could have a match tonight after he cleared it with Santino. Dango looked very unhappy at this, as he knew he was going to die. Yeah, Dango doesn't come to work. He just wants to cut shitty promos. John Skyler and Jason Hotch were in the ring in suits, ready to celebrate with Mustafa Ali. Skyler got the state they were wrong for heat. Yeah, he called it Mississippi instead of Louisiana. Ali came out and gave a potential speech. He said he's going to make the X Division great again. So he's going Trump territory, which is a choice, but I know some people are pretty upset by that. Before he could release his first executive order, Chris Sabin came down in the ring. Ali came face-to-face with Sabin. Sabin said that change was a common thing between him and Ali. And for Sabin, that change is about being unselfish, making the future better, and for everyone in wrestling, which Ali, however, believes it is manipulating people to get what he wants, with the good hands being prime example. So Sabin said that he respected the fans that supported Ali. Yeah, because people were chanting for Ali, but that he was not a politician and he was there to fight. Sabin attacked Ali and the good hands jumped Sabin, but Kushida and Kevin Knight made the save. So yeah, good segment. I like this Ali character. I'm cool with it. They also made an announcement that there's going to be a trios match: Ali and the Good Hands versus Sabin, Kevin Knight, and Kushida. Sans Alex Shelley. I wonder what's going on with Alex. George Iceman came out and announced that Ash by Elegance was here and going to make a huge announcement. Iceman said that there was a huge announcement to make. She'd be having her second match in TNA next week. That's pretty annoying, that's by design. Ali was backstage with the security, Hotch and Skyler, and he was upset at Sabin, Kushida, and Knight for ruining his inauguration and that there were going to be consequences for their actions. Zaya Brookside and Tasha Steelz went to a double countout. This was awful. This was fucking brutal. I don't even want to recap it. It was so bad. just not good. Anyway, double count out. So lazy booking 101. Nobody gets over, and both of them are going to go lose to Jordan Grace at Sacrifice. So there you go. Rhino challenged Crazy Steve to no DQ match. That actually happened on Explosion. I think Steve won. All right. So yeah, I breezed right through the recap. Like I said, not much happened. So we got to the main event, and I thought this was a good main event, but I have a problem, like a slight problem with it. This was the same match that happened last week, but with just different people facing the system. Still a really good match, but it was like slow start, picks up in the middle, and then you build to crescendo finish where they're going really, really fast, hitting big move after big move after big move, and then the system wins. I'm pretty sure that's like that same formula they used last week. But again, it was still a really good match. But maybe they could have put this match on next week since they just did the trios match last week. But I really did like it. So Austin hit a kick. So the main event was Eric Young and ABC defeating the system. Actually, I don't think I think pretty sure the system won. Yeah, the system won. I don't know. This was definitely the system won. So sorry, yeah. Austin hit a kick, then Myers hit a spear, and Young hit a tope suicida to the floor on Myers. Bay and Moose were still not the legal men here, but we're in the middle of the ring, and ABC hit some double team moves, including going for the art of finesse on Moose, but Edwards broke it up. Moose hit a pump kick on Austin and a huge vertical drop kick on Bay, who was on the top rope. Ed set up a backpack stunner on Bay, and Moose hit a pump kick on Bay while Edwards hit the stunner, and Myers flew off the ropes with a top rope elbow. I kind of liked that finish. So, Edwards with the backpack stunner, and then Myers comes down immediately with the elbow and got the victory. I liked it. I liked the show. it's just not must see. And I think, and that was the final thoughts from the Observer. A good show, 2 good matches on the show. I think that everybody should really go give Steve Maclin versus Speedball Bailey a shot. I thought that was a really good match. And then of course the main event match was pretty good. We got some new matches for Sacrifice Trios match. We got Ali and the Good Hands versus Kevin Knight, Kushida, and Speedball Bailey. We got Josh Alexander versus Hammerstone. We got obviously Moose and Eric Young, which we found out about last week. Looks like we're going to get Ace and Bay versus The System for the tag team titles. Knockouts Tag Team Championship is going to be on the line. We got Jordan Grace versus Sasha Steele versus Zaya Brookside. So show's kind of still. And Nick Nemeth versus Steve Maclin. So like, Young versus Moose, Maclin versus Nemeth, Alexander versus Hammerstone, and then Ace and Bay versus The System. Like those four matches right there. That's a pretty damn good show for a TNA Plus show. I like that. That's pretty. That's well worth $10 to me. So I hope everybody goes out of the way to watch that. Should be a good show. Wow, this is a lot longer than I had anticipated. We're at 56 minutes. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for the Patreon subscribers that were in the chat. So homie Dre, looks like he might have already left, but he said, I believe this past episode was the best since the rebrand. Yeah, I thought it was good. And he said Big Hammer versus Jake something needs to be a world title match. I would say a future world title like main event would be perfect. Nonzo said I'd have Hammerstone turn heel against Josh at Sacrifice. Yeah, I think that's the move, right? I think he should join the System and turn heel and beat Josh at Sacrifice. Absolutely. And Anthem is getting behind the product after seeing that Moolah from Hard to Kill. That very well could be what they do. So thanks to everybody that was in the chat. I think all of our Patreon subscribers. Thank you for keeping the channel going. It's because of you I'm able to do this, so I really do appreciate it. And be on the lookout for some more content this weekend. I'm gonna be recording tomorrow night, Sunday night. And I'm going to be talking about Sting's last match with the Young Bucks. So I'll be, and that'll be on Patreon. So continue to stay tuned for that. Everybody throw some thoughts and prayers out there to Mr. JD Oliva for his family's loss. We love you, buddy. And we hope to get you back on the show soon. But hey, guys, that's going to do it for me this week. And until next time. Oh, hold on. I got to get my thing queued up. And until next time, mahalo.